Namaste. The presentation is on how children actually learn the real world and what can design education learn from it. I was able to understand this aspect of children only because I studied design. And in design education, we are actually getting one opportunity to understand the real world. And naturally, it is experientially rooted and autonomy is provided, which also means that knowledge creation is an aspect of design education. Um, so one very important thing that seems to have forgotten is that we are biologically equipped to learn the real world, and naturally we how we learn and what we learn are biologically bound. What that means is that the tools, qualities, attitudes, skills, and even the content is dictated by biology, because the limits of what we can learn is limited by the the extent to which we can use our senses, because that is what gives us input, and it is only from that we can begin to do whatever else based on that input. So that's a primary aspect of learning. So the presentation will focus on playfulness instead of play, toy making instead of toy as a product, which means playfulness as a quality and toying as a process. So simultaneously, the learner develops ability, quality, skills required to learn, and at the same time, the content itself is explored. So this is actually the sum total of what actually children do through their, what we call as play and toys in the actual sense. So in this process, the formation of the cognitive system is formed, and the development, or we can also say the development of the foundation. Foundation means the foundational structure from which both the content gets further deepened and understood, and the qualities and abilities for needed to be a learner gets far more refined and better. So this is actually what the natural process provides for us. I've been documenting children for about 30 years. Whatever children do spontaneously and without any adult support. And from this almost 3, 4, 5,000 videos and images that I have, I've been able to decode the activities in terms of uh, what they learn and how children learn of the real world, and how that is connected with the play and making of toys. So the first aspect I would look at is what children learn. And so as I told, children recreate what they experience with clear logic. And the world as it is, they are studying. And what to the world is what I wish to talk about, which means what they see, the form, the function, what is the use of the particular activity, real activity, and the process of making that, processes involved, materials involved, structural stability, and of course the context within which everything is happening. So this is basically this is after studying almost 4-5,000 videos that I've been able to kind of see a pattern in every activity that children do. Some amount of redefinitions are required if we wish to proceed and understand the paradigm that I'm talking about. So creativity in this particular case is that because children are not taught, they are left completely free. They are always within the realm of unknown, and so creativity needs to be understood as the condition that is provided by unknown to function. So creativity is basically the response to the unknown, and play needs to be understood as playfulness as a quality that is embedded in the child. So naturally, every act of the child is play. This child was eating a coconut. He took one bite, and then next moment, then he suddenly remembered the Dundee bull. So that was his first connection that he made. Let's look at the similarity of form. Suddenly, then he again changed it to the half moon. Look at the similarity in all these formal aspects. So this is basically the principles used in creation of toys, and this is also the playful exploration that children do. So this is not this is an integral activity in which learning is the byproduct. So play, in another sense, we can say that play is the reenactment of experience. See, it's like reflection in experiential realm, not in the language realm, but in experiential realm. So play actually is kind of a reflection of the experiences they are having, but experience understood in its various aspects actually. So toy is the object that is used as props in the process of reenactment of this experience. Any object that resembles the original object is recreated to suit the context. So this is the basic law. Now this particular object is her child, and another next few seconds later the same object became a bus. So children don't fix one object for one thing. So this is the flexibility of their exploratory mind. Imagination itself is rooted in their real experience in the case of children, whereas what we educated have is imagination of imagination. Because to read actually means to guess, to imagine. The root meaning of the word of read is to guess. So which means that through reading we are only constantly imagining or constantly making up actually. The two combs are used as aeroplane. So this is the immediate possibility that a child understands, and just a chapel is good enough. So the first aspect that I wish to share is the form, the way things look. So this is something I'm sure most of you must have done it, keeping the book like this and said this is the house. So one level of exploration is how something looks like another one. So that formal, how form resembles. So this is very interesting example. In this case, actually, she had never seen a binocular, but the form invited her to look through it. This is, I think, one of the best examples of affordances, which is what actually children are completely, enabled with, to understand the affordances of materials, situations, mobile phone, mobile phone. She actually was doing some work, and she saw this and immediately turned the greeting card into her own laptop. And this is very interesting example. Many things have come together. There is mudguard also there, chapels, old tin, umbrella tip. So many things have been put together to create their vehicle. Even far more interesting thing that in this case the comparison is not with form but with relationship actually, in terms of, so these two plugs are imagined as their father and mother, and in the next moment, she laid it down and said they are sleeping now. So, you can see this almost like metaphor in action. We understand metaphor in terms of language, but what you find what children do is a constant comparison of how things look, the color, texture, size, various aspects are compared and connected. This is so natural in children. So it is actually these kind of fundamental issues that get lost when we introduce play as an activity by adults, and toy, a ready-made toy actually. So the function is what is the use of things. For example, here the children are just putting bedsheet over a table and saying that this is their house. So house means actually the space. The function is the space that is provided. you know and also again they don't distinguish between something play and then and non-play. So process is the way in which things happen. So this also again, I'm sure most people must have created their own house using whatever material available. Could be the pillow, chair, table, you know and so this is actually in a school that I have run for 3 years, 2011 to 2014, where a fantastic experiment of reimagining schools were conducted, where children were left completely free and they began to create what they really wish to, spontaneously and naturally. So structure is the way things get constructed, because As children create certain things, they are also aware that it has to be stable, it has to stay, so naturally that also gets learned in the process. Structural stability. Quality is the materiality of things, what is possible with a material. So for example, I'm sure all of you must have sat on the chair and started bouncing. This is what children do. The moment they sit on a sofa, the quality that is available in sofa, this it makes them bounce. Now this is an interesting example of a chair in the in our railway station, which is very smooth. The moment you sit on it, you start sliding, and so the children would make use of it immediately. They sit on it and start sliding. Actually, so the formation of the mind is something that could be explored in the process, uh, because senses have access to the world, meaning the real experience, whereas mind has no access directly to the world, but through language it can understand the what is outside. It's similarly vice versa is also true. Senses have no connection with concepts. Actually, it can only connect with the real experience without names, of course. So it's interesting to look at how language and form are connected. So this child used to call, Billy, cats Mimi, and dogs Cuckoo. So this was the first thing that the child encountered. And so when the child saw tiger, he called it Bada Mimi. And the lion was also called both Bada Cuckoo and Bada Mimi, because the when the child looks at the body, it was almost looking like the dog. So the formal resemblance, even in language construction, is very clear. So this is another very interesting example. A child had actually, she was seeing a peacock flying, and the child told that is crow, cook, kaka. And when the peacock got down and started walking, she called it kuta, dog. So she had actually created two categories. One, all flying ones are kaka, and all walking ones are dogs, because that is what the child encounters first. So it's very interesting to see from right from their first experience, how do they begin to build, understand similarity, build certain categories, and how naming and experience itself happens in this process. So so in this way, the child is able to retain the integrity of the mind and body, and the integrity of the world and the word. This is learned together, not in separation, isolated from the real experience. So how children learn is another important thing to look at. How children learn autonomously. So this is autonomy is very important. So I was able to decode that they experience the whole but explore the parts, and in that process integration happens. So number one is that awakening of senses is the most important thing. Senses uh, is the tool that connects the inner and the outer world, because things, as the senses, when you touch, what you touch touches you, or when you smell, what you smell smells, that. So it's the same. The body's understanding of senses, or smell, is happens by the input that it gets in. So awakening of senses, fine tuning of senses, and development of all the tools that are required, and the qualities that are required, all this happens in the process of experiencing the world. So when I say observation here, it's not just bound to eyes, but all the senses are in a way a state of alertness, in the sense that immediately a sound that the child has not heard, immediately the attention goes there. So everything is like that. So, but of course, I is far more important in the case of human beings. A very good example of difference between animals and children. Of course, animals also observe. It's not that they don't observe, but children, our human beings, um, even though there are potentials, the awakening happens through engagement and interaction. So here the child is constantly trying to, look at how that dog is doing. Other very, very important activity is through comparison, finding out similarity and finding out differences. So the child in the front is looking at the feet and finding the similarity and finding the difference. This is actually the crux of all learning. All senses are involved in making these comparisons, similarities, and creating a certain kind of category based on that. And all this happens experientially because, if suppose you are eating a mango, it's the taste that tells you that this mango is different from other mango, not because mango is called something else, or mango can be called by any name, mango, tango, pango, kango, it can be any name, but the taste remains the same. So it is actually in taste that you understand the way the world is. So one important thing about such a thing to happen is that the existential conditions of freedom, abundance, and interest must be kept intact. Only in such condition, what is inherent in children, that to be autonomous, to be contented, and the will to live, all this gets operated the moment the existential conditions are satisfied. Unfortunately, in the modern context, none of these conditions are satisfied, because freedom is not understood as something that life gives, but it is something that adults can give to a child. Adults can only take away freedom. Freedom is given by life, because all living beings can only function in biologically function in a state of freedom. Of course, there will be difficulties, but even for dealing with difficulties, freedom is required so that an autonomous response is, possible. So this is a kind of a circular arrangement where curiosity is again embedded in life. Curiosity is that leads to observation, that leads to exploration, that leads to making of deepening of interest, which also then leads to refinement of attention. Of course, patience is another major aspect of meaning. Just sit and observe, don't do anything. Silence, patience, which again leads to further curiosity, and this circle goes on. So this aspect, I think, is what is missing in the modern context of learning, where we are only engaging with the written word and we are only engaged in analysis of somebody else's information. Thank you. I hope this presentation will make more people rethink about what we do to children and truly create a child-centric space. Thank you.